Thank you for your patience, everyone. I would now like to invite the moderator of a panel we're about to have, Peter White, who is a television editor at Deadline. Please come up to the stage and take it away.
Thank you very much. As I said, I'm Peter White. I'm the television editor at Deadline. Excited to be moderating this panel. We've got some great names on here tonight. They've already been introduced, so why don't we just get this started and get people coming up. We have Haggai, obviously. We have Danny and Dana. We have Alon. We have Adam. And we have Marc. And Francesca, sorry. Haggai, let me start with you, if you could grab the mic, maybe off Alon. Given that what we've just discussed, InTreatment was arguably one of the first Israeli shows to be remade here in the States. What was the reception, what was the reaction at the time when you were talking about remaking an Israeli show in the United States?
What was the reaction to InTreatment
or the idea of making an Israeli show?
Right. I don't know what to say. Look, no, again, I'm not really. I don't see myself as an expert to the Israeli TV, so I cannot say much about that. I can say that actually a very interesting development that's happening over the last years that shows are actually shown in their own language on HBO, Netflix, Apple, whatever, is actually is really a blessing because I think it like contributes a lot, especially to the American audience, to be open to other languages, other cultures, and it can promote also tolerance. As I think it's something you really need. So yeah.
Maybe Adam, why don't we go with you? We were just talking before this idea that back then, you had to remake shows, and now you don't. And then we can maybe ask Dana and Danny, who had a show picked up in their own language.
We can't hear.
What was the reaction for you? What was the change, for instance, when shows stopped being remade, as Haggai's was in treatment in 2008?
Fauda was the first Israeli show, I think, that may have been sold on tape, or maybe it was Hatufim, but that was the first big one. And I thought it was really cool because I think it was in about 160 or 170 countries, and including Arabic countries, and people who had never heard Hebrew got to hear Hebrew for the very first time. And in that show, they also got to see a conflict that they knew nothing about, and they learned that there's no right or wrong, and there's pain on both sides. And I thought, that's the power of television. You can do something like that and enlighten people around the world as to something that's going on, and you get false narratives all over the place.
Dana, Danny, when you were starting work on Tehran, and then obviously Apple came in to pick it up, was there ever any conversations about remaking it, or was it always going to be in its native language?
Apple watched the first 2 episodes of Tehran, and they really loved it and wanted it as it is. And so we sold the first season on tape, but the second season we did with full collaboration with Apple as producers. And I think it was an amazing experience for us. We are a small company from Israel working with Apple. And it really was amazing, because I think the fact that we managed to work with their notes and their production expectations, but still to keep our DNA as an Israeli show, was something that we really wanted. And I hope we succeeded, you know. Season 2 is on air, so you will judge it.
Yeah, and we'll see some of that later. It was mentioned in the introduction about Israel punching above its weight. And I think other than my home country, the United Kingdom, more shows seem to come out of Israel than perhaps any other market, certainly in the scripted spot. Dana, could you perhaps talk, from your experience, and then maybe we'll go down the panel, why do you think that is?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh. I think because Israeli people have a lot to say. Okay?
That was funny.
Not only because they have the Israeli chutzpah, but also because they live in a very, how do you say, tense place. And I think that the Israelis are living the moment. It's like they have this passion. And, it's not only on TV that Israelis succeeds. It's all over, high tech and everything. And in TV, I think that the television creators, they really have something to say, And in Tehran, although we did a genre series, we also had something to say. We also tried, we tried to entertain, but still we tried to bridge and, learn more about our enemies. And we had a close contact with the subject, because it affects our lives. So I think a lot of the Israeli shows are like that, and that's my answer.
There's a universality to it. Alon, you and I have discussed this on many occasions. What do you think is part of the reason that Israeli shows are punching?
Obviously, without undermining the amazing Israeli storytelling and talent, I give it a lot to the Israeli entrepreneurship. I think there are many similarities between what's happening now in television media and what happened in high tech 20 years ago, when Israeli tech companies discovered that there's actually a market, outside of Israel, and companies like Checkpoint and Amadox became massive unicorns. Israel obviously is a country, with very small land, not too much resources. There's some gas, in the country, but not a lot. So in general, brain power is something that Israelis have always tried to export, because that's what we have. And then I think that the Israeli determination and chutzpah and entrepreneurial spirit, that was one of the main drives that actually allowed us to have guts and do it. Haggai actually had the guts to go and make it with HBO. And it's something that when you live in Israel, and the boundaries are so tight, and you know that there are not many opportunities, you need to try more. You need to try more. You need to dare more. Because it's nothing comes easy. And you see that in high tech, Israel last year accounted to 25% of all high tech exits in the world. That's crazy for a country so small. And you see it also in media. I think all the producers, Dana and us and Haggai, we all entrepreneurs. We want to go out there and hustle and make it in America. That's part of the Israeli dream, to make it in America, because Israel is too small. So I think that's the spirit that brought technology from Israel to America. That's the spirit that brought so many construction experts from Israel to America in the 70s. They still dominate construction in LA, and that's what drove so many producers and creators to make it in America.
Yeah.
It's this entrepreneurial spirit and determination to make it outside.
So the question is,
Yeah, no, that's fair. Marc, you represent a number of these Israelis. What's your take?
Great storytelling.
That's what I was going to say.
Well, you told me to say it, so I said it. No. Great storytelling. You know, we very proud to be in Kesha's life and a guy's life and many others, but inevitably you hear an idea and you're like, that's going to work. And Rick and I, we've been to Israel several times, and there's just something to it. And I remember seeing your guys' thing, and I was like, wow. I remember sitting in the room with Haggai and Rick and Franny and everybody else at HBO listening to our boys and what that was going to be. Phenomenal storytelling. And I just think it really resonates in a way that a lot of other stuff, quite frankly, doesn't.
You think it's intangible? I mean, I guess other people are looking at Israel and wondering, why are they able to do it? Alon, says it's the hustle, perhaps. Do you think there's anything more to it? You think it's...
Yeah, I think there's soul, as silly as that may sound. Honestly, one of the most fulfilling creative experiences I've had is sitting in that room at HBO, listening to a guy talk about our boys and the conflict and how everybody's actually a human being, regardless of which side you are on. And I think that Haggai's comment about not necessarily identifying as Israeli, but identifying as Jewish, I very much relate to that. I'm not Israeli, but I'm certainly Jewish. And you listen to these stories, and it just feels within all of us, and it's universal.
Yeah. Do you think that tension plays into it?
I'm sorry?
The tension of that.
100% for sure.
Yeah. Adam, what's your thoughts on Israel?
I think that what Marc said, Jews are great storytellers. Also, Israel is a country that does not have a lot of money in the television business, so it's not like you're watching all this high-action genre stuff. It's just about characters. And the characters are complex, and they're layered, and they're relatable. It's also a Western society, so people around the world in other Western countries can relate to the characters. And I think and TV's about characters. It's not like you're watching a movie and that's it. People are going back episode after episode to watch the characters.
Yeah. You've been responsible for both sides of packaging shows, whether that's Euphoria and 68 Whiskey, or selling shows. You mentioned Fauda and obviously Tehran and such. Where do you think we are now, in a sense, in 2022, with the idea of a show like Tehran launching on Apple around the world and obviously in the States versus adapting a story and turning it into English?
If you can be lucky enough to sell a show in a foreign language, it's a lot easier than packaging it. What do you say?
I actually like packaging, and I was thinking like what separates apart the Israeli shows is for selling. There's something about the shows that they do; they're easy to sell. I'm thinking about When Heroes Fly, which is a new Keshet show. When Rick and I saw that in Israel, the moment we saw it, I'm like, I know how to sell that. I can get on the phone with a buyer and articulate it within a minute and have them excited. It's exactly what happened, right? It's going to be on Apple relatively soon. So yes, I think the acquisition thing with foreign language is perhaps easier, but I think when you package it correctly, there's something that's very seductive about that.
It's true. It just takes a longer amount of time. But in the past, no one was interested in tape versions of shows in Hebrew. And it's still very hard. There's still outliers, but if the show's fantastic. I mean, Tehran is actually very helpful to the Israeli television industry because it's a hit. It could actually be nominated for not just an international Emmy, but a real Emmy this year. And it's fast-paced, and it's action, and with people that have limited attention spans these days, people turn TV on and off really quickly, and it grabs your attention. So I would imagine that the other streamers would be looking for other shows that are sort of like that grab you really quickly, and it's a great thing for the country.
What changed?
If I can say something about our industry, I mean, because we're in America now, but these shows start in our industry, Israeli industry, and I think they wouldn't have started without great commissioning editors, great people that just want to see great shows coming out of Israel, inside of Israel, You have people in Hot, in Yes, and all of the players that just want to see good stories, want the Israeli story told, after many years that we were not, were not able to tell our story. And this international start with people that want to tell great stories in Israel.
And then you have to have really smart buyers here. So I sold Euphoria to Franny. She bought that show in the room. And I was actually very surprised. I don't know if she's still here because it dealt with a younger audience. And at that time, HBO was not doing shows like that. So you also have to have the wisdom on the other side.
Euphoria is an interesting case in point because it's very different to a lot of the Israeli shows that have been packaged or sold. Do you think there was something inherently Israeli about Euphoria?
Well, the Israeli version dealt with there was an Orthodox kid, but they were just problematic children.
Yeah. Alon, Cachette is behind Homeland, Prisoners of War, a two-film, we're calling it. It feels like that was a huge moment for Israeli TV. I appreciate, it was remade in English, but it felt like that really put a spotlight on the business. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Homeland was a big moment for everyone, and I think that, we can all agree it paved the way for the big Israeli wave. It could have never happened, without WME and our partners, Rick Rosen was here and Marc Koman. It couldn't happen without, the American side, realizing that there's something here and taking it further. Absolutely. I think, what really worked, in this what actually created this amazing moment, of Homeland is this collaboration between Avi and Gidi, Avi Nir, my boss, and Gidi Raff, who created the Chatufim, and Rick, who really believed that there's something, there's something in it, and managed to convince Howard Gordon to take a swing. So yeah, I think that was in a way the embodiment of this, Hollywood Tel Aviv collaborations. Obviously, being Jewish helps. I think there's, a very profound connections, between American Jews and Israelis, and it's absolutely, something that in our favor. But Homeland, was a special moment because of this collaboration. I mean, it could have not happened without, Rick Rosen believing in Chatufim and Avi and Gidi, really wanting to take it further.
Yeah. Rick, I feel like there's a homage being paid here. We should get you up on a chair.
Rick Rosen should stand up and get an applause.
I would also say about Homeland, that was, when it happened, it was, I think, a pivotal moment for American creators. I think that they finally stopped, not finally, they realized, wow, there is great stuff coming out of Israel. And Howard Gordon and Alex Gonza did such a phenomenal job. I really think it changed the mindset. I don't know how you guys feel, but the mindset of our creators wanting that.
No, not only for Israeli content. I mean, it absolutely, after Homeland, all the midcoms were exploding with formats. Homeland absolutely, I think, was a sign for everyone, not only the Israelis. I mean, you saw Dutch formats and you saw Scandi formats, and if traditionally before Homeland formats was more non-scripted, after Homeland, what started with InTreatment, really became significant. Yeah, you can actually sell a foreign format, as a drama, not only a game show, and that was the big moment for the industry as a whole.
Marc, what do you mean when you say it changed the mindset of creators here?
I think prior to Homeland, the idea of adapting something for television didn't happen often. A lot of the hit shows are original ideas that were cop shows, legal shows, doctor shows. And I think Homeland made people stop and think, you know what, it's okay if something is coming from elsewhere, it's not my original thought. And it made the buyers weirdly feel safer that something existed before. That was a hit. And exactly. Yeah. And so, and a lot of our buyers now, I think it's probably a direct result of Homeland, who feel more comfortable if something exists already, that there's IP.
Yeah.
The danger in all these, prosperity or whatever, is when people are in Israel, they are trying to make shows that will appeal to America. Mm-hmm. I think this is very dangerous. It's happening in Israel a lot. People are, and it's happening also to the broadcasters in Israel that they think, oh, can we sell it to America or not? this is a dangerous process because, creators should create because this is something that is burning inside them, not because they're going to sell it. If it's going to be sold, then great, but it can, it can ruin an industry slowly. This kind of American colonialism, so to speak, is a great thing because people can make a living, but there is a danger in it, and I think the people in Israel, the creators in Israel, should be very aware of this, and the broadcasters, and it's something that we don't speak about it a lot.
Are you suggesting that some local Israeli creators are now looking for the world first rather than Israel first?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
They think that's where they're going to make their money, and they're going to make their name. But
absolutely, and also the broadcasters in Israel, they would, one of the main consideration is, can we sell it abroad? This is problematic, This is like ruining some very important culture. So,
are you seeing that already, or are you worried that might happen?
Of course I do, yeah.
Yeah, you think it's already the case?
Yeah. And the nice thing is, like, there are some amazing Israeli shows that can never be adapted because they're so idiosyncratic, they're so specific that you cannot remake them, and sometimes they're the best shows in Israel. So that's really nice.
You haven't adapted a show since InTreatment, right? They've been either original ideas or Swedish.
That was, it's very ironic that after being adapted, I adapted myself. I wouldn't do that if it wasn't like as such a critical piece of art to my whole work. It's like it brought everything to me, and I felt I cannot refuse this kind of an offer.
Yeah, Danny, curious what you think of Haggai's comments there. Whether you think it is having an adverse effect on the local creators that people are looking to the US first.
I'm sure it does. It's very nice to make money and become famous, as Adam said, worldwide. But I don't know. I can tell you from my experience, whenever I did something to make money, I did shitty movies.
It's true. You got to do your passion.
Yes, and when you go after your passion, you make something. And when we did Tehran, we went only with our passions. We didn't think about making money, or we just wanted to tell that story. We thought it was a great story. And we also looked inside of Israel. We didn't look outside. And we wanted to tell a story also a little bit about Israel through looking at Iran, looking at what does it look when your country is ruled by a clerical elite, asking ourselves even maybe remotely what will happen if Israel is ruled by a clerical elite. So we had many deep questions, and I'm happy it resonated all over the world. So it's good to think about the world, but you always have to look inside first as a creator.
I have to say that I think that we need to go out to the world because we don't have money, Haggai, in Israel, to do the things the way we want to do. And you need to do your thing, but you have to go out in order to do it really, really good, because those adaptations are great, but we have like amazing crews in Israel, amazing artists in Israel that should be doing great things, like in Tehran, all of our chiefs, the production designer, the DOP, were all Israelis. We took, all of them were Israelis, and now the whole industry is exposed to the ability of those people. And I think it's very important, yes, to find partners in the world and to elevate the things we want to do. We could have never done Tehran only in Israel without trying to find partners in Europe or in America.
You had an idea that you wanted this to live outside of Israel before you created it. Curious whether How do you make sure that it is both a good local story, but equally something that will work then in that case?
We told the story we want to tell. It didn't affect the story. We didn't try to tell a story that will be more, how do you say, plausible? How do you say it? Convincible, plausible to the world. But we wanted to do, you know, that was on the creative side. But for me, as a creator and as a producer, you know, I was on one side doing a very Israeli story told to Israelis, but on the other side, I was going all over the world to look for money to do it good, to do it the way we should do it. So I think it's important that Israeli shows will not only be adapted, but also be produced.
It's a business decision. You have to divorce the business from the creative, is what ultimately you're saying. Yeah.
What Israel is facing now, and maybe we should talk about it, is that one of the issues with this, U.S. America opening is that everything is more expensive. And if Israel was, proudly producing shows, for, I don't know, 250, per episode a few years ago, now it's almost double. Many of the Israeli writers, are already successfully working, abroad. Many of them, are too busy to work in Israel. When they do, they want, obviously, American or European fees. The production value, obviously, is being pushed up. With so many great shows, the bar is really high. So an Israeli show now needs to look, like an American show. So the financial situation, or may I say hardship, is that the Israeli producers and buyers are facing, increasing prices, expensive fees, and as a result, it's very hard to do anything without American money. So every producer and commissioner is chasing co-productions because they have no choice.
Yeah, that's why they come to you for deficit financing, presumably, Alon.
Yeah, but it becomes, too expensive. It becomes, it's the Israeli production budget, were doubled in the last decade. Doubled, maybe even more. And again, most of the leading writers, are already signed, with outside producers.
Yeah.
So it does affect the Israeli industry, not always in a good way.
Yeah. Adam, curious, as someone, and I'll come to you, Marc, as well, as someone who's looking for these Israeli creators to ultimately sell their shows around the world, what do you make of Haggai's thoughts there?
I also can't hear you.
Okay. Just curious, as someone selling these shows, from Israeli creators, curious what you think of as Haggai's point that actually it's harming the Israeli industry.
I agreed with what Haggai said, but I think it's hard to sell a show that's pure local in nature if you're selling the tape, and that's anywhere around the world. So if it's issues that only deal with something that's very specific to the country, it's hard to do, but like it happened with Fauda, but I'm not saying it's an easy thing. You have to get lucky. And it has to be fantastic production, and you have to have amazing characters, great actors, great directing, great writing, great producing. And then if people can get interested in the topic, even though it's something that doesn't come natural to them, it can happen. But it doesn't happen every day. I mean, there's been many Israeli shows that have been sold here, but still, in the scheme of shows that are on platforms, it's a very, very tiny percentage. And the shows have to really be good, I think.
Yeah. Marc, what do you think?
I didn't really hear the question, I apologize. But in listening to his response, I don't think it affects the creators and coming up with ideas. I think that's just going to happen regardless of budgets and everything else. And the thing that I keep thinking about, because I'm telling you, I love your show, and obviously I love all of Haggai's stuff. The thing that's tricky to me is all of the shows that you guys have created share, I think, two things in common: tension and angst. And I think perhaps it's because they're Israeli television shows. And the thing that I think we have to, that's difficult for us, is for American creators to feel that same level of tension and angst, and how to keep the stakes as high. So we're always going to be attracted to Israeli creators because they have the ability to tell those stories. And I don't know if that answers your question at all, but
it does. I'm more confused why you can't hear me, but sure. The Israel's, Tehran and many of these shows, Homeland, a certain type of show. Alon, you did The Baker and the Beauty, which was a romantic comedy. Do you think we'll see more shows coming out of Israel that are, in a broader sense of genre?
Absolutely. I think that it's true there was this, kind of masculine military genre, that came from Israel. Something between, soldiers, espionage, which makes sense because, that's the Israeli reality. We do live in this society, with soldiers and espionage. So obviously we tell stories, in that, universe. But yeah, we spoke about Euphoria and obviously Baker and the Beauty, and stuff that we develop, from Israel, to other countries without the Israeli screen. So yeah, I think that, Israel creators are becoming very diverse and very open-minded, and yeah, you're going to see much more, of non-Israeli subjects, and themes such as romantic comedies.
Hulu just put an Israeli comedy. It's really funny and it's really relatable. It's not only local to Israel, so it doesn't have to be a specific type of show.
Yeah. We'll open it up briefly for some questions here, but before I do, maybe I can just go down the line. Is there an Israeli show, current or old, that each of you would like to see remade? Haggai?
No.
I probably shouldn't have started with you.
No, yeah. Because this is the idea. I think that the best, I do think of like really amazing shows in Israel, and I think whenever they're going to be remade, they're going to lose their soul. So I don't think of anything that could be, the economy is one thing. Luckily, I'm not a producer and I'm not a financer or whatever. I can think as a creator. So as a creator purely, I don't think...
Let me reframe the question then. Is there an Israeli show that American audience should watch that maybe they haven't?
A lot of them, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but give me one or two. Come on.
Well, it's you caught me. I don't know. There is an interesting show that was in Israel this year called Zero Hour or whatever. It's a show. It's a small show, really small. And he won a Cannes series lately. Cannes series, and
The Lesson.
It was.
Yeah, that's a very tough show.
Yeah, so this is a very small show about based on a true story that a teacher was fired because he expressed his political opinions in Israel. He was leftist, of course, and he was fired, and they did a show about that. Very small show, like with a very low budget, and I think it's really interesting. And I think, yeah, if you could see that one, it could be totally relevant for everyone. If you will remake it, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Alon, an Israeli.
I agree with Haggai. That's the one I would choose, and also Baker and the Beauty second season. Such a shame, only one season, So I want to protest. But Shat Efes. What's the name? I don't recall. Shat Efes. It's a very strong show that should be in America.
Are you going to get the A word away here?
The A word, easy here and was here, in its British version. We have there's a spin-off launching this year on BBC One called Wolf and Katie. It's a spin-off, about a married couple from the same village that has Down syndrome. And I think that the A-word, is going to live forever and will keep evolving. And this story is going to be told in America for sure.
Dana, a show that you think American audiences need to watch from Israel.
What was your question? Oh, of course, my show. No, there is really. I have a show. Yeah, I won't pitch it. No, but Netflix are doing a remake, and I hope it will come through. You know.
What's the name?
Amdoveb, Magpie. Yeah.
Excuse me. We didn't know anything about this.
What?
We have a lot of preparation. We can, out of respect, and would like to see the movie.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, I think the audience might have spoken, so why don't we give our panelists a round of applause?